Welcome to Storyflix. In this video, we will explain Big Brother. The movie tells a former soldier who is recruited for his toughest mission yet, teaching a class of teen delinquents. As he kicks his way into their school and daily lives, it becomes clear that his unconventional teaching style might be just what his students need. Can a former soldier teach high school kids? Let's find out on Big Brother. The film begins by showing a new teacher named Henry Chen. Henry is interviewing at Tak Kai High School. The interview session did not go well because he was rejected due to no teaching experience. Henry then gave him a paper. The principal read the letter and suddenly changed his mind. Henry was then accepted as a teacher. The first day of teaching arrived. Henry arrives at the school and he is appointed as a homeroom teacher in a class known for having the naughtiest students. And sure enough, when he entered the classroom, his students didn't seem to care at all. Everyone is busy with their activities. Even students are busy cooking, playing games, and enjoying their time like they were at home. But Henry tries to get their attention. He wrote on the blackboard but was laughed at because his writing was bad. He then gave his students his cell phone number, but they made a phone call and asked him to go home. Using his sniper-style abilities, Henry then shoots a water sprinkler using chalk. All students got wet. But he was ready with his umbrella. Now he got their attention. During the school break, some students hang out in the corner of the school, smoking cigarettes. There were Jack Lee, Gladys Wong, Gordon Hong, and Bruce Kwan with his twin brothers, Chris Kwan. They were planning on how to kick Henry from their school. Then suddenly, a group of basketball players came and kicked them out of the hangout place. That afternoon, Jack and his friends decided to take revenge on the basketball players. While watching a basketball game, Jack decided to throw his water bottle into the middle of the court. One of the basketball players fell because he slipped on it. Unfortunately, his actions were seen by Miss Liang. Jack then got detention and had to copy a lot of sentences. Instead of completing his detention, Jack put a caterpillar in the paper and gave it to Miss Liang. Miss Liang was hysterical, spilling the tea on her desk and littering her workplace. The next day, several men from the education department paid a visit to Tak Kai High School. Meanwhile, Henry had arrived at the school and was preparing to teach. But when he entered his class, his students had prepared many traps. Fortunately, he swiftly warded off a bucket filled with water and threw it back at his student. Henry continued his teaching. Now, he builds a fun atmosphere in the classroom. He asked 3 questions about cigarettes. If someone manages to answer, then that student can go home. His different way of teaching makes his class so excited and active. But on the other hand, his crowded class was seen by the officials from the education department. School break has arrived. Jack gets into a fight with the basketball players in the school cafeteria. As a result of the fight, Jack and his friends were forced to be expelled from school. But Jack did not accept it because they were the only ones who were expelled, while the students on the basketball team did not. After hearing Jack's story, Henry decides to ask the principal for leniency. Henry then went to Jack and his friends and gave them a form they had to fill out. The students took the form except for Jack, who just left school. Henry cares about his students and started doing some research. After getting some data from the administration room, he knew that the students had different backgrounds and problems. Gordon is a student of Pakistani descent who lives in Hong Kong. Since childhood, Gordon was very interested in singing, but his friends always bullied him for having a bad voice, and he also has a dark skin color. Meanwhile, Gladys is a tomboyish student who always has bad days at home because her parents always neglect her. Her father preferred boys and never cared about her at all. That's why she tried to change her appearance to look like a boy, even though her father still doesn't care at all. She hopes to become a racer one day. Next, there are twins named Bruce and Chris. They live in a slum environment. Their mother left them and married a richer man, while their father was always rude and drunken. One day, the principal tells Adam that the school's conditions are getting worse every year. The students' test scores at the school were always the lowest. In addition, the education department plans to close the school. The scene then switched to Jack. Because he is no longer in school, he now works as a waiter in a restaurant. That's when he accidentally overheard chatter from the elite who were planning to demolish Tak Kai High School by the end of this year. They intend to make the school as a profitable business place. While the men are watching the horse race on TV, Jack steals a golden match belonging to Kane Law, a gangster boss. Unfortunately, his actions were discovered. Jack is then beaten by Kane's men. Kane discovers Jack's identity, who is a student at Takai High School. He then asks him to come to his place, as he has a job for the boy. On the other hand, Henry decides to visit Gordon. It turned out that at that time, he was being chased by thugs in his neighborhood. It turns out that Gordon stole a concert ticket that belonged to his father. Luckily, Henry managed to save him. Gordon is then taken by Henry to the city center by the sea. That's when Henry said that Gordon should be confident in his singing skill. Gordon was then challenged to sing in front of everyone on the seafront. Unexpectedly, Gordon can indeed sing and has a good voice. Now his confidence is increasing. The next day, Henry searches for the twins, Chris and Bruce. Henry meets their father and tries to give him some parental advice. Henry then asked Chris and Bruce to come to a sharing center. Unexpectedly, it turns out that their father works as a counselor there. The father and his two boys began to share how they feel and make their relationship harmonious again. Meanwhile, Gladys was teaching her little brother. Her father came and immediately forced her to put on the makeup he had bought. Gladys is going to be betrothed to a man. But it makes Gladys annoyed because she does not like to look feminine. She decided to take her father's car away, but she met Henry. Henry finally takes Gladys to a racing circus and invites her to race there. But apparently, Henry invited Gladys's father and challenged them to a race. It turned out that Gladys won the race. Having lost, her father mocks Gladys and challenges her to a road race. Without hesitation, the two of them immediately took the race car to the streets and drove fast on the busy streets. Unfortunately, her father had an accident and injured his hand. Gladys panicked and tried to help her father, but a car sped up and almost hit her. Luckily, she survived. Gladys's father thought his daughter had been hit by a crash and immediately expressed his feeling as if he actually loved Gladys. Gladys, who was listening to it, moved, and the relationship between the father and daughter became harmonious again. The scene changes to Jack. He went to Kane's base and he was given a job. It turns out that Kane is an MMA fighter and will have a match tomorrow. Jack is asked to put a drug in his opponent's drink so he can win. At first, Jack seemed hesitant, but in the end, he agreed. Henry then goes to Jack's family. It turned out that all this time, Jack had only lived alone with his grandmother. Jack's attitude at home was so different. He turned out to be a grandson who loved his grandmother very much. Jack always told his grandmother many things. Even his grandmother didn't know that Jack was no longer in school. At that time, Henry accidentally found the drug that Kane gave to Jack. Henry knew what kind of drug it was, and he knew Jack could get into the wrong circle of friends. That night, Jack begins to do his job of administering the drug to Kane's boxing opponent. But he was caught in the act. Eventually, Jack was tortured by the MMA boxers. Henry comes to look for Jack, but the boxers won't let him meet Jack. It turned out that at that time, Jack was locked in a locker, so Henry began to show his self-defense skill by beating all the MMA boxers there. Amazingly, he was able to beat them all. They were then taken to the police station, but Kane and Jack were released because there is no evidence they started the fight. In addition, Kane also did not make a police report on the incident. Henry goes home with Jack. That's when they saw Jack's grandmother working very hard. That fact made Jack want to change and go back to school. He wants to change his life and provide a better life for his grandmother. But who would have thought Henry's fight was caught on a CCTV camera and the video suddenly went viral. It turns out that Henry is a former student at the Takai school who was sent to continue his military education in America. He then decided to get out of the military world and travel the world to find his identity. Until finally, he decided to return to Hong Kong and return to his old school. It turns out that his former school principal once ordered him to return to his school to become a teacher. Because the information about him had spread, now all his students became very respectful towards Henry. Amazingly, his students became so enthusiastic about learning. That afternoon, Jack and his friends hung out together. That's when they began to express their desire to continue their education at university. At that time, Chris was pensive because he was not sure he could pass the exam. He felt that he did not have the good academic ability. Chris decided to buy a drug that he thought could increase his intelligence. He regularly takes the drug. So before the trial test started, Chris drank as much of the drug as he could. But he got the lowest score among his friends. The next day, Chris pretended to be sick so he wouldn't have to go to school. It turns out he was so frustrated and decided to commit suicide. Chris's suicide attempt caused a stir in the country. News of Chris's death was everywhere. Henry is in the spotlight and blamed for Chris's death. Officials from the education ministry then questioned Henry. They asked about his ability to be a teacher. Moreover, there is a viral video that shows him having been involved in a fight. Finally, Henry managed to express his defense and shut the officials' statements about him. Henry was expelled from Tak Kai High School. His students were so sad because they lost their teacher. To repay Henry, they decide to study hard so that their school doesn't close. They also proved that Henry's teaching style made them study hard and succeed in academics. Who would have thought the test scores of the Tak Kai High School students showed amazing scores? In the end, their school was not closed. The news made Kane angry because he could not build a business at the school. The exam day arrived and they were waiting for Henry to come to their school. Suddenly Kane and his men appeared. Their cell phones were then taken and they were locked up in school so they couldn't take the exam. The goal is so they fail in the exam and the school will be closed next year. Unexpectedly, Henry suddenly appeared and beat all of Kane's men. Henry asked all his students to go to take their exams immediately. Now Henry must fight Kane in a duel. It turns out that Kane used to be a schoolmate whose arm was broken by Henry. Due to an injured hand, Kane can no longer play the piano. And on the other hand, Kane had to come in second in a taekwondo match, where Henry won the match. All these grudges grew inside Kane, and he desperately wanted to avenge his hurt on Henry. Finally, Henry and Kane were involved in a fierce fight until Kane was defeated. That's when Henry chose to stab the knife into his leg rather than kill Kane. Amazingly, all the students successfully passed their end-of-year exams. Finally, Tak Kai High School did not close, and now the students are doing well, and their school became one of the top high schools. Henry is again appointed to be a teacher at Tak Kai High School. This film ends.